Hello and welcome back. My name's Anne, and on behalf of Great Heights Training I'd like to welcome you to the Assessor Refresher course. So in today's session we're going to look at the role responsibilities of assessors. The idea is to refresh your understanding, to be able to allow you to reflect upon your current role, your current approaches to how you actually assess individuals, and maybe to actually develop those. As an assessor, you're the individual who assesses the learner, making that assessment decision as to whether the learner is competent in their field. You're in a position where you facilitate the individuals to be able to allow them to have recognition for what they've achieved in the workplace. Assessors can be qualified or even training towards their qualification whilst undertaking the role. The current qualifications to become an assessor are the Level 3 in assessing competence in the work environment or the Level 3 in assessing vocational achievement. Now this has been identified as two separate areas with the growth of work-based assessment. It was identified that this was a particular skill in itself, and the vocational setting, again, a skill that required different processes and approaches. Fundamentally, both of them will look at the assessment and how to actually approach assessing techniques. But within the work environment there are obviously further considerations with individuals going into workplaces where the learners are able to actually demonstrate the skills in their own work setting. The Assessing Competence in the Work Environment course is actually viewed by vocational qualifications industry as a quality mark for all assessors that are actually in the work environment. Some of you may have done the previous structure of assessor courses, and this may then assist you further with regards to looking at the new approaches that have been adopted. The Assessing Vocational Achievement course is aimed at individuals who want to assess the learning and development, knowledge and understanding outside of the workplace, and this tends to be within a teaching environment, workshops or training. Many individuals will undertake both of the courses to allow flexibility to actually assess either within a work environment or a vocational setting. This is particularly useful for individuals focusing on apprenticeships where their learners are both work-based and also college-based. As an assessor, you're regulated by the awarding body requirements and standards, and these will cover areas such as making sure that assessment and verifications against the national standards, that best practice is actually continued and followed through, and also that all the guidelines are adhered to, including the standards of practice and criteria are met. Quality assurance is another key area that's actually laid out within the requirements, making it easier for you to actually drive quality across all your programs and working with all the individuals that are involved in the assessment process. The idea is that the awarding body will support you to be able to achieve the quality and standards without additional workload. The standards will also lay out what a competent person in a job could be expected to do. As individuals progress through the course, you can compare the skills and knowledge with these standards, so individuals can also learn as they go along. But the idea is that the standards act as the guide to ensure that all individuals are following through the same qualifications at the same level as specified within the actual guidelines. The requirements also might specify exactly how an individual should be assessed in a particular skill, or areas that certain types of assessment are not deemed suitable. As an assessor, you're then guided by the criteria which is set out by the awarding body. This allows you to actually make the decisions on whether or not an individual learner has achieved a competent status within that particular skill. It's essential that in order to gain the evidence that individuals are assessed in a number of different ways, and this allows support not only for that particular skill to be recognised, but when it comes to verification to ensure that that there's no gaps, that individuals have been clearly assessed and there is support to actually show this. Dependent on the awarding body that you're actually going to be working with, there is a reference often to you as a teacher, but this role is not about teaching. It's about assessing the existing skills, supporting individuals in their work role and helping them to develop and support the competence in their role. So where does the assessor start? The first stage in terms of the interaction with the learner is normally through the induction process. At this time, this is the opportunity for you as an assessor to get to know the individual, to find out about their job, their workplace, the expectations, and what they're hoping to achieve from the actual course, and also to be able to understand their experiences, whether they have any prior learning that will be considered relevant, and what sort of skill levels they're at, in order to be able to advise and support them in their selection of course, whether it's going to be the award, the certificate or diploma, and then the level is it's going to be sort of 1 entry through to 1 to 8, and this will be in line obviously with their competences and previous learning. But ensuring that anything that an individual has already achieved is taken into account to avoid repetition, but making sure that the elements are suitable to be considered. Then we look at the idea of providing the relevant paperwork. There's the induction forms, health and safety requirements. It's also necessary for the learner to know the roles of all individuals that are involved in the assessment, so that they have a better understanding of it. And also for workplace setting, the learner should have access to the relevant company policies and procedures. This not only helps them in their particular post, but also will assist you with regards to the framework in which you're going to be assessing. These also may impact on the activities, and also the approaches and methods that would be used for assessment that could be selected in this instance. So information should also be made available within the induction process with regards to the procedures as set by the awarding organisations. And these include things such as the programme specification, how to select the units, which units would be best suited to the job roles. So you really do need to identify the roles of the individual, the skills they have. It's often individuals don't always consider how many job roles they have in terms of the daily tasks that they undertake. They take it for granted, and therefore sometimes they need to discuss this to be able to identify which units would best suit the skills and the tasks that they undertake. Another point is there may be a unit that an individual would like to do, but it might not be a task that that individual will undertake for some time, and therefore may not be appropriate. It's always good to spend some time with the individual to be able to allow them to be able to understand the activities that they do within the workplace and what sort of evidence that would generate and how that links to the criteria. Keeping in mind a holistic approach for them to be allowed to achieve as many criteria elements as possible. So the next stage is looking at the idea of planning assessment with the learners. Where this assessment will take place, is it suitable to always carry out assessments within a particular work environment? Will they need a special room? Arrangements that need to be made with management, for example. So how will this actually happen? When will it take place? And obviously it's essential that everything that is discussed is agreed with the learner, that they actually have an active role in this, that it is led by the learner with your support. That leads us on to the idea of supporting learners during assessment. Now the idea is that you provide guidance without actually telling them exactly what needs to be achieved. In this way, it's looking at how best to use their work role to meet criteria. Referring to the criteria and actually using that as a guideline is really helpful, getting the individuals to take ownership and understand the criteria and how they can actually meet it. When the individual learner is given the opportunity to sit down and discuss their role, it's often that they'll be able to identify opportunities to generate the relevant evidence. And obviously your support will actually then help them as a learner to build a portfolio of evidence, and this in turn will actually meet set criteria and the unit content. In order to achieve this, it may also be necessary to establish contact with management for this particular purpose, as well as obviously gaining access and the necessary arrangements with regards to contact and how long. The employer may have a set task list or role that needs to be followed within the given timescale, and that might actually dictate some of the units that will be able to be achieved. For example, if there was a particular campaign within a marketing role, the individual will have a timescale, will have particular tasks that need to be achieved, and obviously it's essential that taking on this particular qualification actually enhances their job role and doesn't actually hinder or disrupt the tasks that they need to achieve. The learner may present you with a wide range of evidences, and obviously that your role is then to make assessment decisions, and these will be based on the assessment criteria only. It is essential that your own opinion and personal judgments are not used instead of criteria, but obviously the judgments to ensure that criteria is met. And this is further supported by ensuring that the evidences don't stand alone, that you do have additional forms of evidence to support those individual criteria, to make sure that all the elements are covered for IV process purposes, but also for meeting standards and the quality of the course that they're undertaking. All the work that's undertaken is governed by the standardised procedures of the centre, and these will include things such as accuracy of recording all assessment decisions. You will find that different centres will provide different paperwork. This may be online format, it may be paper-based, there may be carbon copies, but the idea is that you are recording all assessment decisions as well as all feedback, so that you're actually keeping a record of the learner's progress and making sure, of course, that all data is stored in line with the procedures set by the centre. This may be that you have to keep folders in a set place in locked cupboards, or if it's online, that making sure that the areas or the computer is password protected. A further consideration is also confidentiality. Working in a workplace environment will often mean that there are clients, there is data that is sensitive, and that obviously the companies wouldn't want it to be shared. If there's working in an environment where you're dealing with individuals, such as in the care sector, ensuring that any names are blanked out, any personal details are not made available, and there's no risk of any data protection breaches or confidentiality being broken. Another role is to keep up to date with assessment practice, and obviously this is something that you're doing by undertaking this course, allowing you to actually gain a better understanding, allowing you to reflect on the way that you work, but also to keep up in terms of good practice. In addition to this, obviously making sure that you are up to all the developments that are undertaken in the field that you work. If you're working in sectors, particularly within business IT environments, which can be quite fast moving, it's essential that those particular skills are up to date. It also regards to any laws or rules or regulations that might impact on your sector, and also then on the individuals that you're working with. This could be laws and rules that could impact on everybody, such as when the Disability Discrimination Act was updated, the implications for the work sector and how individuals were catered for. Or it could be developments in your own field with regards to the IT use and how to actually access individuals. It may be online, and therefore obviously if all the work is then, if individuals are then working remotely, being able to assess them becomes different in terms of your approach and the need to up skills in those areas. So this leads us on to the idea that it's essential that you constantly plan and carry out continuous professional development. And this is made up of a number of areas, whether it is attending courses, reading material, researching online. It's really good to be able to keep a log of these and actually allow yourself to actually build up the skills that you're continuously working on. Logging your CPD is also important for your own personal progression. If you're taking on new roles within assessors working for other training providers or colleges, then it's essential that you can actually prove that you have actually continued to develop personally and professionally with regards to your assessment practice, but also in your area of expertise. We will go on to look at this area in a little bit more detail, but the whole area of assessing learners, making sure that you are using valid, reliable, fair and safe methods. These will be approved by the centre. There may be methods which we mentioned previously that would be recommended for certain units, or some methods that they request that you don't use. But we will look at this in more detail within another session. The next point about working within health and safety procedures. Obviously, going into a work environment, there may be environments that could be potentially hazardous, that there are areas where there could be trips and falls. Making sure that you assess that area for your own safety, but also for the safety of the learners and others around you. Reporting anything if you see anything such as loose wires or something that could be a potential hazard. This is also with regards to looking at equality and diversity. It's important that you gain an awareness of learners' understanding. It's often built into the courses or units. There is often reference to these, and you can establish how much the individual knows, but also to be able to view the individual in that work setting, making sure that you feel comfortable that equality and diversity is actually maintained. Being competent in your role and field of assessment links into the area we discussed with regards to continuous professional development, but being competent in terms of also your professionalism within that setting. You're in a company, you are representing your own centre or training provider, and therefore it's essential that your approach and your skills are maintained to demonstrate your competence as well as being able to have the skills to support the individual learners. Reviewing learners' work is obviously an ongoing task that you will carry through the process of working with that individual, and ensuring that they are timely and constructive and positive, allowing an individual to have time to reflect, but also to be able to develop or improve where necessary. Taking us back to acknowledgement of the QCF framework, obviously it's your responsibility as an assessor to make sure that you actually understand that framework and all of the elements within that, to also fully understand the course specification, the construction of the units, and then obviously that allow you to be able to effectively assist the learners. It is important that you download standards in the qualification handbook and encourage the learners to also do the same, so that what you're following through is transparent, but you also have a tool of reference to ensure that you are maintaining the standards throughout the time of the course. So the last couple of points to consider are ensuring that you understand the rules of combination, making sure that the unit selection conforms to the requirements of the given course, and understanding the credit framework when they're choosing their units, ensuring that the number of credits that they meet within their selection is able to fulfil the requirements of that particular level. So this concludes our coverage of looking at the responsibilities and role of yourself as an assessor, an area that is constantly being developed and allowing you to learn as you go along in terms of the new skills and approaches.